Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, liking the video, leave all your thoughts in the comments below. Today we're going to be talking about the heavyweight division, a recurring theme over the past few weeks, especially with that Usyk Wilder talk and now the Wilder Chisora talk. But we're going to go in a slightly different direction today. I want to sort of talk about the next generation of heavyweight fighters, who is going to be that star in 5 to 8 years, who's going to be that guy at the top in 5 to 8 years. We're going to talk about some of the names that are in and around that now, some of the names that are coming up, and some names that you might not know. So let's get into it. Now, just to give a bit of backstory to this video, last night I was watching some more content, and I've been making some content talking about Wilder and Usyk and Chisora and all these names that over the past few weeks we've been talking about a lot. And these names include Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk, and Derek Chisora. Now, my worry was, when I was thinking about it last night, was why is the biggest talking point right now in heavyweight boxing? All right, I know it ebbs and flows, the most of the time talk comes and goes and so forth and so on. But some of these big names that we're talking about right now, some of the big guys that we're saying are selling out stadiums, that we want to see what they're doing, who they're fighting next. Geez, these guys can sell out a stadium. These are going to be a massive event. We've got these two big giants of the heavyweight division putting on a fight in San Francisco for 150,000. This talk in and alike, all of these guys are old. Now, Usyk, 39 years of age, Wilder, 40, Chisora, 42, Tyson Fury, 37, Anthony Joshua, 36. I don't see any of these guys really being in and around the heavyweight division in 24 months. So the biggest talking points right now are going to be gone in 24 months. Who is going to pick up that sort of crown of, I'm going to sell out the stadium, I'm the guy everybody wants to fight, I've got the belt, I'm going to make a run for it, I'm going to be somebody that we talk about in the next 30 years of, is he one of the greats of all time? That Alexander Usyk has held that mantle the past few years. Who is that next guy? And, you look at the top 11, because it's champion, and then the top 10 of the heavyweight division, and you've got Usyk at 39, Wardley 31, Caballero 33, Dubois 28, Hrgovic 33, Zhang 42, turning 43, Bacoli 32, Atalma 21, Ajagba 31, Torres 26, and Murat Gassiev at 32, averaging an age of just shy of 32 years of age, 31.6 to be exact. But that's a good age. That is a good age for an average of the heavyweights, because it does sort of cement you for another 5 to 6 years of what are these guys going to do. Obviously, the big problem is the number one guy is the eldest, 39 years of age, minus Zhang 43. But to be honest, I wouldn't have him in my top 10. I don't know how he's scraped into that top 10. This is Ring Magazine, by the way. One other thing, this is sort of a tangent from what we're talking about, but when I was making this and looking at all the rankings in the governing bodies, including the Ring Magazine, Joseph Parker is nowhere to be found in any of these governing bodies. He's nowhere to be found. And is this a reflection of the drug thing? Is this a reflection of one loss? Like, are we forgetting the Bacoli, the Zhang, the Wilder in the lead up to that fight? All right, we got Daniel Dubois, who's still in the top 5. We've got Tyson Fury, who for a very long time was sat number 2, even though he was back-to-back defeats of Alexander Usyk and was self-proclaimed retired. Why is Joseph Parker outside of all of... I'm assuming the only real way that he could be there, not there, is he's either retired, which from my knowledge he's not retired, and the other part of it being that contentious drug issue that he got found guilty of in a sample, which normally has to go through other means before it's fully cemented that he was this or that and banned and whatever. So, yeah, I'm not sure why Joseph Parker is being pushed out. I did just want to address that. I thought it was very odd, because for me, he's probably in this list of Usyk, Wardley, Caballero, Dubois, he's probably 4th. He's probably 4th. He's below Dubois, but for me, he's above Hrgovic. I just thought it was odd, but Joseph Parker is 34, and to be honest, I put him in that group of AJs and stuff that 12, 18, 24 months, I think it is call it quits for Joseph Parker. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for a few more cash grabs, get a bit of send-off money before you retire, because he's still a good name, especially, I think he sells still in the UK against a good name. You could still sell that fight. New Zealand, Australia, if he came out here and fought, I can guarantee you he would sell a lot of tickets. So that is that. But I have put together a tier list. It's up on your screen right now of my top 12 heavyweights in the world right now. Of my top 12 guys that are sort of either in and around the top now or will be in the very near future. And the sort of landscape of how I rank these names that are coming through the ranks, the guys that I think are going to be there in 8 to 10 years and going to be shooting it off for who is that best heavyweight. Now, a lot of this is opinionated. A lot of this is sort of based on the current and now, because it is hard. It is hard to rank a lot of these names off a lot of work that they haven't done. A lot of it is how do we perceive they're going to go forward. But we will run through it. I think we'll go from bottom to top. I think that is the best way to do it. Obviously, it's up on your screen so you can see who is and where. But we are going to run through why I've put them in their positions now. So number 12, we've got Daniel Perro. Right now, 26 years of age, 12 victories, 9 knockouts, 0 losses, 0 draws. Former Olympian as well, although he did get eliminated to Richard Torres Jr., who we will get to eventually. But he is a very exciting fighter. I remember the first sort of fight that I really sat down and watched was his one against Cesar Navarro. And that was an exciting and fantastic fight between these two. Perro was down, I believe, twice in that fight and still got up and still went on to win. Look, with lots of these names, and we're going to probably say this over and over again, we are talking about fighters that still haven't been tested at that highest level, and Daniel Perro is one of those guys. But if you take in contention what he's done as a professional and what he's done as an amateur, for me, he sits at 12. But, you give this guy a few big fights and he sort of cleans it up, gets hit a little bit less, he's going to really rise in these rankings. In number 11, we have Big Gug. If you aren't familiar with this guy is a monster. He sort of falls into that Bakoli Zhang type category. Tyson Fury maybe at his biggest, but he is a big dude, and 27 years of age, 9 victories, 8 knockouts. And you know what? He's been on a few cards with Daniel Perro, and another guy that looks very, very exciting, but not a very good amateur. But for me, amateur can be so subjective and really not prove a lot going forward professionally. There's plenty of good amateurs that can't make it as a professional. There's a lot of good amateurs that do make it as a professional. And when you look at the heavyweight division, when you fight an amateur fight, it is all about earning points and your activity across the 3 rounds. Well, this guy, Big Gug, is not there to be active and moving it and trying to win round after round. This guy is in there to knock you out, a bit like Martin Bakoli. He's throwing bombs. He's not a quick mover. He's very stagnant, but when he lands his shots on you, you've got to be able to eat him, because if you can't, you're going down like a sack of shit. And for Big Gug, at 27 years of age, he's starting to really elevate his game at heavyweight in the professional game. And once he starts getting tested, we're going to be able to see whether this guy is, somebody that falls into that category of a Zhili Zhang or a Martin Bakoli. That, yeah, he's a very entertaining fighter. He can hit you hard, but ultimately, when he falls to that top category, can he cut it? Because we've seen Martin Bakoli fall to Joseph Parker. We've seen Zhili Zhang fall to Ajit Kabayel. And although these guys look like monsters coming into those fights, those are the type of fights where we really get to see whether or not you can cut the mustard. But this guy's got all the physical attributes that can really drive him forward to be a sell and be somebody that we want to go and watch fight, because he's interesting, he's different, he's unique. And everybody loves a knockout artist. So for me, he sits at number 11. Look, like I said, it's very subjective. You could switch Perro and Big Gug very easily, but for now, I've got him as number 11 because, like I said, he's offers something completely different to a lot of the names on this list. Number 10, I got Jared Anderson, 18 victories, 15 knockouts with 1 loss. That loss coming by KO, 0 draws. That KO, you'll remember, was that round 5 knockout loss to Martin Bakoli. But he has had some good wins. George Arias and Charles Martin are probably his best wins. Charles Martin is coming up to fighting, I believe he's fighting F.A. Jagbar on a Zuffa boxing card. But Jared Anderson is a very good fighter and still quite young at 26 years of age. So there's a lot to like about Jared Anderson. The big question is that loss to Martin Bakoli, and that's the reason it couldn't be any higher. I feel like before that Martin Bakoli fight, we're talking about a guy that would be pushing the top ranks of this. But yeah, it wasn't a good watch what we saw against Martin Bakole. And for me, Jared Anderson, he's one of those few names that are a real driving force of what US heavyweight boxing is going to be in the future, because over the past 10, 15 years, there hasn't been a lot to look at in terms of US heavyweight boxing outside of Deontay Wilder. And when Deontay Wilder really came to push and shove against Tyson Fury, we saw how that went. And for Jared Anderson, for a long time, I think lots of us believe that is this guy the next guy for US heavyweight boxing? And we're going to talk about another US star soon. But Jared Anderson, I think, put number 10. He's just done more professionally than what Big Gug and Pero has. Number 9 is Tera Moana. Now, lots of you will be familiar with him. 27 years of age, 9 wins, 9 knockouts, 0 losses, 0 draws. A former Olympian, didn't get very far in the Olympics, lost to Jalalov, which is a name that's going to be reoccurring in this tier list. But nine fights up until this point, with 2 of those fights being round 2 knockouts, and the rest all came in round 1, which is very, very impressive on paper. He's got that amateur background, which will help carry him through as well. But you are 27 years of age. You have now had 9 professional fights. This is the time where I'm sort of sick of seeing you knock people out in the first round. I'm sort of sick of watching you knock people out in round 2. All right. These guys that are really not at the level, all right, they're acceptable to a point, but you are 27 years of age. You look at other people that are in and around that age on this list, and they've done more professionally than you have. Yes, you get backed up with that amateur background, but that amateur background only pushes you so far. I've seen plenty of people that have been at the Olympics that by their 9th, 10th, 11th fight are in world title fights or in interim world title fights. We're going to see Andy Cruz against Raymond Muratella very, very soon. And he's a prime example. Obviously, Andy Cruz, very successful in the Olympics compared to Tera Moana, but you're a heavyweight fighter. I don't like this word of like tomato can fighters, but this is a time where you really start pushing yourself and you have tougher fights, because up until this point, it's great for your resume, it's great to sell yourself, but you don't learn anything from reoccurring round 1 knockout. So for me, he sits at number 9. Number 8 is Richard Torres Jr., 26 years of age, 14 wins, 12 knockouts, 0 losses, 0 draws, an Olympic silver medalist, losing to Jalalov in the grand final. Best win up until this point is definitely Guido Vianello. A very good fight. And look, Richard Torres Jr. obviously goes above some of these names because he has done quite well as a professional. I believe Guido Vianello is better than anybody that Tera Moana, Big Gug, and Pero has beaten. And of course, he did beat Pero in the Olympics. So for me, there's no doubt Richard Torres Jr. sits at number 8. And he's a very, very exciting fighter. I know a lot of particularly US fight fans are big on this guy. For me, I'm not that big yet because I still think there is ways to go. I think there's better names out there that you can go and beat, but he is exciting. He's very, very skilled boxer, which is always useful in the heavyweight division, especially when you don't have that size that a lot of other people has. Richard Torres, I don't put as a big heavyweight, but he's got the skills to make up for that, a bit like Usyk does. Look, I'm not saying Richard Torres Jr. has the skills of Usyk, but I'm talking in that similar mold of fighter. Now, Richard Torres Jr., like I said, 14 victories, 12 knockouts, the best win being Guido Vianello. There's still ways to go, so I can't put him any higher than 8. Number 7, I've gone with F.A. Ajagba, 31 years of age, 20 wins, 14 knockouts, 1 loss, and 1 draw. That draw coming to Martin Bakole, the loss coming to Frank Sanchez. The one thing I will say, although it looks worse than some of the records below him, I don't think there's any shame in getting a draw against Martin Bakole. All right, and the fact is he went to a decision with Frank Sanchez. He didn't get knocked out by Frank Sanchez, and that was the bit where Frank Sanchez was really ranked as that big, terrifying monster before Ajit Caballo really cut him down. But F.A. Ajagba still has some good wins against Kozabutsky and Vianello, so for me, he sits at number 7. It will be interesting to see how he goes with this new Zuffa deal. If he can sort of back up what we think he can be with his boxing, entertaining, win some big fights, marketed well with Zuffa Boxing, especially in America, he can be a big, big name and a big star for the next 6 to 7 years because he is only 31 years of age. Depending on your longevity, you've got a good few years left in you. Do I think he can reach the heights of a world championship? No, and that is why I've only got him at 7. I actually think there's people below him that could possibly reach that peak, but they just haven't proven anything in the heavyweight professional level that says I can put him against F.A. Ajagba, because, yeah, although F.A. Ajagba's had some things go his way in other ways, at least we know his level. Some of the people below him are mysteries. It can go wrong very, very quickly. So for me, F.A. Ajagba sits in 7. Number 6 is Justice Hooney, 26 years of age, 12 victories, 7 knockouts, 1 loss, that one coming by knockout. And that loss is probably the biggest sort of area of credit you give Justice Hooney, because he skyrocketed. Like, his stock skyrocketed with that fight with Fabio Wardley. And although it didn't go his way, we saw over the course of 9 rounds just how good a boxer he is. His best win up until now for me would be Kevin Lerena. Another amateur that lost to Jalalov in the Olympics as well. But Justice Hooney, at 26 years of age, it's clear how gifted he is as a boxer. All right. He will outbox majority of people at heavyweight. All right. My problems with Justice Hooney at this point is what we say over the next 1 to 2 years of, number one, I need to see him increase his power. All right, his power output needs to increase, because some of the shots he was hitting Wardley with were clean shots, but for me, they should have been doing more damage. The other thing is, and it's probably the main talking point, is you will not become a world champion. You will not get to that height if your chin is the way it is right now. All right, he got rocked against Kevin Lerena, and some people say he got away with it in the end. Didn't get away with it against Fabio Wardley, all right? And you make one wrong step and you get hit by a bomb and you're out. You can't afford to have that at heavyweight, because everybody that you come up against has power. This isn't lightweight. This isn't super lightweight where you can afford to have a weak chin because the guys you're fighting don't really have that power. This is the big boys, and unfortunately, we've seen Justice Hooney get cracked a few times, and every single time he's really buckled. I've seen it in sparring. I've seen it in the top ranks. So for Justice Hooney, I think he's got all the boxing ability to reach that pinnacle, but you won't reach there if you can't increase your output of power and you can't increase the amount of power you can take, because right now the chin is looking suspect, to say the least. But I am a big fan of Justice Hooney. Like I said, I think he's got all the attributes of technically a boxer and landing your punches. Those few things, if he can clean those up, this guy will reach that top. Number 5 is Jalalov, 31 years of age, 16 wins, 14 knockouts, 0 losses, 0 draws. Look, not many names on there that he's beaten, I will admit that. And somebody that I really think that at 31 years of age should have been focused on professional a long time ago. There's been so many years now that he's just been going in and out of amateur, in and out of professional. From what he's saying, he is now committed fully to his professional game after winning that 2nd gold medal. But in terms of why he is number 5, even though he hasn't done it at a professional level, I do think 2 gold medals speaks volumes. And on top of that, the fact that he's beaten Terra Moana in the Olympics, the fact that he's beaten Justice Hooney in the Olympics, the fact that he's beaten Richard Torres in the Olympics puts him at number 5. But I think he's such a skilled boxer, and you don't win gold medals if you're not a skilled boxer. It's just, it doesn't always translate, and I just want to see that commitment. I want to see that commitment to taking big name fights, all right? There's no real reason we have to wait. You've had 16 professionals. You've had over 100 amateurs. What are we waiting for? Let's get these big names in there with you, Jalalov. A lot of that comes down to his promotion and everything else, but it's also your decision of what you're doing with your career. Number 4 is Daniel Dubois at 28 years of age. We've got him number 4, 22 victories, 21 knockouts, 3 losses, 3 knockout losses. Now, mind you, 2 of those knockout losses were to Alexander Usyk, so I don't put a lot of shame in that, because Usyk is just unbelievable. But the loss to Joe Joyce and the fact that you get knocked out twice to Usyk does make it look worse. And there is a lot of question marks about Daniel Dubois' mentality. I don't think anybody questions his athleticism. You could question his boxing IQ. I think he's a good boxer. All right. I think he's shown that he is a good boxer. He can land his shots. He can pick his shots. He can avoid taking damage. But for me, the big thing about Daniel Dubois is his mentality, and that is the big change of what I need to see in Daniel Dubois. He's still well and truly young enough to run heavyweight for the next 5 to 6 years, providing he's got the right mindset and really applies himself, because having parties before the biggest fight in your life doesn't reflect that. The way in which, that he fought against Joe Joyce in that loss wasn't great. The way that he sort of lost in that second Usyk fight, though many people question it, two sides of a coin. You either believe he quit or you think, he just took a big shot and you went down. Either way, the fact that the question marks are there are a reflection of what his career's been up to until this point. And for Daniel Dubois, I believe he beats basically everybody below him. I think there is a few question marks. There are some good names there that'll give him a good fight, but the wins against Hrgovic, Miller, and AJ prove that he is a top heavyweight. And although some of the guys below him might compete with him, that doesn't mean they're going to beat him. And one thing Daniel Dubois has is that pure athleticism, that pure strength that we saw him use against Anthony Joshua. Number 3 is Moses Atauma. Now, this could contradict everything I've said up until this point, because for me, he really hasn't done a lot at the top. But at 13 victories, 11 knockouts, majority of those coming within the first few rounds, with wins over White, Balogun, and McKean. All right, those 3 guys he totaled 4 rounds against. All right, it'd be less because he knocked them out 1 round, and 2 round. At 21 years of age, there is no doubt that this guy here is that guy for heavyweight division. He is the one that everybody talks about. I haven't seen a guy at 21 years of age, especially at heavyweight, have the raps that Moses Atauma does. The way people talk about him, the people in and around him, the people from outside, everybody that talks boxing has a positive thing to say about Moses Atauma. And there's a reason for that, because he's shown that in his fights that he has that boxing intelligence. He's got that power. He's got that grit. He knows what he's doing in the ring. The one thing that, there's a reason he is number 3, and there's probably a reason that lots of you might put him lower, is because his best opponent is Dillian Whyte. A Dillian Whyte that was well past his use-by date, in my opinion, and a Dillian Whyte that really showed nothing in that fight. And Moses Atauma, he's 21 years of age, he shows all the promise, but he hasn't gone 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rounds. He hasn't been in there in a tough, gritty fight. He hasn't had to pick himself off the canvas. He hasn't eaten a big punch up until this point. And with all those question marks, you're like, how is he going to react when that happens? If he reacts well, we're talking about a guy that could run the heavyweight division for the next 10 to 15 years, depending on longevity, depending on injury, depending on a lot of factors. But in terms of pure boxing ability, in terms of what we see as a prospect in Moses Atauma, number 3 is, I think, a very fair place to put him. Number 2 is Ajit Kabayel at 33 years of age. Some might say that he's not the future. For me, 5 to 6 years, we could see Ajit Kabayel still. I mean, you look at Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk is still the heavyweight champion, the unified heavyweight champion, and he debuted at heavyweight at 32 years of age. So for me, there's no question he can still be the next 5 to 6 years. If we're going longer than that, then yeah, you've got that argument. But next 5 to 6 years of Ajit Kabayel, he's shown that he is a top guy. All right, he's shown that he can sell out a stadium. That fight against Damien Kaneba in front of all those people in Germany, shown that he is a likable character. The win against Makhmudov, the win against Sanchez, the win against Zhang, the win against Kaneba show that he can beat the top guys. And look, I see a lot of people rewriting history with Ajit Kabayel, especially recently. They're saying, well, Makhmudov, he's really not that good. Sanchez, he's good, but he's beatable. Zhang, well, he's old and everybody else has beaten him. And Kaneba, well, he was sort of untested. And it's like, no, let's not rewrite history, because Makhmudov before that fight was that monster, all right? And Ajit Kabayel chopped that tree. Sanchez comes in undefeated. He's the next guy up. He's the next big monster of the heavyweight division. And Ajit Kabayel runs through him, all right? He doesn't just beat these guys. He knocks them out, all right? Zhili Zhang, a big power hitter up against little Ajit Kabayel. How is he going to fare with the power, the size of Zhili Zhang? The experience of Zhili Zhang destroys him. All right. And then Damien Kaneba, another unique fighter, undefeated, standing, towering over Ajit Kabayel, and he beats the living shit out of him. All right. So let's not rewrite history. Yes, All right, there is ifs and buts about them, because I do agree that Makhmudov isn't the fighter that we thought he was going to be. But Adjikabayev's done everything that he's needed to do, right? With all the critics at those times telling him what he can and can't do. The pressure was on him. And, you know, it's different fighting Makhmudov now to the Makhmudov that Adjikabayev took on. So don't try and rewrite history too much. Now, he sits number 2. And the only reason he sits number 2 is because number 1 is 31 years of age. His name is Fabio Wardley, and he is the WBO world champion. All right? You can discuss upon yourself whether you think Fabio Wardley beats Adjikabayev, whether you think Adjikabayev beats Fabio Wardley. The fact is, Fabio Wardley is the world champion. The fact is, he's on this great run of Adelaide, Clark, Hooney, and Parker. He is 20 victories, 19 knockouts, 0 losses, and 1 draw. He is that guy that's proven us wrong each and every time, because for me, he was losing that fight. He was done and buried against Justice Hooney, and he pulled it out of nowhere, all right? He had 0 chance for me of beating Joseph Parker. All right, not 0 chance. He had a good chance, but you know what I mean. You know, exaggeration, but he had no chance in most people's books of beating Joseph Parker. Not only did he beat him, he knocked him out, all right? And he's now the world heavyweight champion. And realistically, he's never turned down a fight. He's never run from anybody, all right? He was supposed to fight Jarrell Miller. All right, he's gone. Who's the next guy up? Justice Hooney? All right, I'll beat him. Who's next? Joseph Parker. Yep, all right, that's my fight. You all reckon that I can't beat him? I'm going to go in there, I'll knock him out. Alexander Usyk, he's the next man up. That's the fight I want. Alexander Usyk declines. There's no ifs or buts on either of them, all right? Fabio Wardley now is in that position of, every time we've doubted him, and lots of people will doubt him when he comes into Adjikabayev, up until this point, he has never not proven us wrong. So for me, Fabio Wardley sits number 1, 31 years of age. We're talking about a guy that can fight for another 6, 7, 8, 9 years. All right, like I said, depending on longevity. This is a guy that hasn't really taken many beatings. We're talking about a guy that started at 21 years of age. All right, he doesn't have those start at 5 years of age, 15 years worth of ring time, 15 years worth of sparring, 15 years worth of beatings that you might have copped in the gym or growing as a fighter. So Fabio Wardley sits number 1. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. This has been a long video. This has almost turned into a bit of a podcast, but I did want to talk about it. Some of you might like this type of video. Some of you might not. If you do like this video, if you stayed with me to the end, please do let me know what you think of the video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm out of here, guys. See ya.